That's my intention. The choices I make each and every day, they are not just for me, they are for everyone around me. I am the example to everyone I touch and the compound effect of those people. My example has a flow-on effect to everyone around me, and I do not take that responsibility lightly. Everything I do, I set the example. I am grateful for the opportunity to be the example. I set the example. That's my intention. I set the example through my actions, not my words, not by what I say, but by what I do every single day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome. This is Walt Blackman, and I hope that you're having a great July 4th weekend, and make sure that you are safe. Now, let's go ahead and get into this. I usually do a 30-minute show. This is going to be a little bit longer because we are going to be talking about a lot of things tonight, and those things are the HR1, the great big bill. Now, before we get into this, I want to make something very, very clear. My job as a legislator is to give you the facts, give you the data, and let you come to your own conclusion on the piece of policy that we're talking about. It's not to say to you that this is the gospel according to Walt. That's not what it is at all. My job here, and particularly tonight with HR1, we know it just passed out of the House, and it'll more than likely be signed tomorrow because tomorrow's the 4th of July. My job is to give you the information to be able to go do your own research, and so you're not getting your research off of Twitter or off of Facebook or what have you. Because if you do that, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a big surprise. So that's what we're going to do this evening. And we're going to make sure that we give you exactly what you need. Going to make sure that we also ensure that you have the data that you need to move forward to be able to make these decisions. So HR1, what is it? How does it affect Arizona? How does it affect our district? We're going to get into that right now. What I'm going to do, well, first of all, what I want to do, I want to correct something that's in the news right now really quickly about the legislature's budget last week. It's about the veterans property tax exemption, if you will. There is no cap on that. So for whatever reason, there's some folks saying that there's a cap. There is no cap in that. You can go to the bill and find that. I'll put that bill up on my website later on towards the end of the show. So what I want to do now is I want to show you some clips that took place earlier today. And I'm going to make sure that you see both sides. If you didn't know it, today or last night, this morning, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader, spoke, I don't know, for some godly amount of hours. And then Speaker Johnson got up to speak. So I'm going to show both of those because I want to make sure that you know that this is not just a biased thing, and it's something that I'm not just doing. So bear with me because we have to got to play both sides, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of this, so you'll be able to discern for yourself.
Gentleman from the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Richie Neal, for yielding and for his tremendous leadership. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in strong opposition to Donald Trump's one big, ugly bill. This disgusting abomination, the GOP tax scam that guts Medicaid, rips food from the mouths of children, seniors and veterans, and rewards billionaires with massive tax breaks. Every single Democrat stands in strong opposition to this bill because we're standing up for the American people.
Yeah, we know that's not entirely true.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard a lot from my Republican colleagues who've expressed pride in this accomplishment. I asked the question, if Republicans were so proud of this one big ugly bill, why did debate begin at 3:28 a.m. in the morning? Republicans are once again, which has been the case, Mr. Speaker, through every step of this journey, tried to jam this bill through the House of Representatives under cover of darkness. But I'm here today to make it clear that I'm going to take my time and ensure that the American people fully understand how damaging this bill will be to their quality of life. Now, Republicans and Donald Trump promised that costs would go down on day one. Costs haven't gone down under Donald Trump and House Republicans here in the United States of America. In fact, costs have gone up. We believe that America is too expensive, that the cost of living is too high, that's a priority that should be worked on in a bipartisan way. But from the very beginning of this Congress, our Republican colleagues have shown no interest in addressing the high cost of living in the United States of America. Not a single executive order has been issued by this administration, Mr. Speaker, to address the high cost of living. Not a single bill has been passed, Mr. Speaker, to address the high cost of living in the United States of America. And this bill, this one big ugly bill, this reckless Republican budget, this disgusting abomination, is not about improving the quality of life of the American people. It will hurt everyday Americans in several different ways. This bill represents the largest cut to health care in American history. It's an all-out assault on the health care of the American people, an assault on Medicaid, an assault on Medicare.
Okay, I've had about enough of that right there. I couldn't take any more of that. I just wanted to do both sides. Now, here is Speaker Johnson talking about his version of the bill, and I want to show his version of it because I want to show both sides. And this guy right here, wow, that's all I could take from him. So let's listen to Speaker Johnson's.
I thank the gentleman from Missouri. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Ronald Reagan said one time that no speech should be longer than 20 minutes, and unlike the Democrat leader, I'm going to honor my colleague's time and be a little more brief than that, all right? I just want to say something that many of us learned when we were children. We were taught, you know, it takes a lot longer to build a lie than to tell the simple truth. My friends and colleagues on both sides of the aisle, we've waited long enough. Some of us have literally been up for days now. But this day is a hugely important one in the history of our nation. We have a big job to finish, and that's why we're here on the week of July 4th, just a day before now, America's birthday. It was on that fateful day, as a Democrat leader acknowledged, that our founders pledged their lives and their sacred honor to this grand experiment in self-governance that we are now here to steward. It's an experiment that falls to us to guard and to protect it. We take that very seriously on this side of the aisle. In just a few moments, we will remind the world why the American experiment still endures today and why its best days are still ahead of us. Mr. Speaker, with one big, beautiful bill, we are going to make this country stronger, safer, and more prosperous than ever before. And every American is going to benefit from that. Today, we are laying a key cornerstone of America's new golden age. Now, listen, we have a few words of gratitude first. Scripture's been cited a lot this morning, I think mostly out of context, but what I will say...
Bam!
What I will say, one thing that we know about Scripture is that we're supposed to give honor where honor is due, and that's what we do on this side of the aisle. I want to thank every single member of the House Republican Conference for their pouring their time and their heart and their expertise and experience into this process. I want to thank all of our amazing staff members, all of them. Yes. Their dedication, their endless hours, their hard work made this all possible. I want to thank the White House Office of Legislative Affairs, who have basically lived with us now for the last few weeks. Their patience and persistence and their professionalism is greatly appreciated. Our country's incredible cabinet secretaries have been involved as well. They've assisted us in countless ways throughout this process. Our Vice President, J.D. Vance, helped us navigate so many dire straits along the last several weeks through the House and the Senate. And of course, our bold, visionary, fearless President, Donald J. Trump, President Trump is the creator and the champion of the America First agenda. We will deliver upon that today. We come a long way. We began this process really about 15 months ago. We had a sense, and we believed that we would have unified government. We would have this moment where the Republican Party would be given control of the White House and the Senate and the House. And we determined to ourselves that we would not waste that historic opportunity. We've had spirited debates, we've had months of deliberation, and now we are finally ready to fulfill our promise to the American people. That's what we are doing today. Now, look, before I respond to the allegations from across the chamber, I just want to take us back to a day that most of us will remember so very fondly for the rest of our lives, and that's November 5th of 2024. That was Election Day, a fateful one for America. The reason that was so important, the reason it was such a turn in history is because the American people spoke with unmistakable clarity. We sensed it as we were all out campaigning. We saw that there would be a demographic shift in America, and that is exactly what the election yielded. We, in our party, had a record number of Black and African American voters come to the Republican Party. We had a record number of Hispanic and Latino voters come to the Republican Party, a record number of Jewish voters and union workers and suburban women and urban voters. They came out in record numbers to join the Republican Party and the America First agenda with President Trump. That election was decisive. It was a bellwether. It was a time for choosing. And I tell you what, the American people chose overwhelmingly. They chose the Republican Party. And the reason they did that They didn't come hesitantly. They came with hopeful anticipation. You know why? Because this is not your father's Democratic Party, okay? They went so far, full speed, to the far left. And their radical, woke, progressive agenda, that nonsense that they tried to push on the people, was rejected by the people. Yeah. These new voters came to us. They had enough of the Biden-Harris madness and all the things they were trying to hoist upon the American people that they just don't believe in their hearts. And they were hopeful. They came to us with hope. They wanted us to restore common sense and accountability, and we promised to them that we would do just that. Those new demographics came to the Republican Party because of open borders wreaking havoc on their communities. They came because of weakness at home that fueled instability abroad, and because trillions in reckless spending put the price of gas and groceries further out of the reach for hardworking Americans. It wasn't right. President Trump and our Republican majority in Congress are fixing all of that right now. President Trump said this week, we're the hottest country in the world again. My friends, that is an objective truth. Hey, listen, how about all the wins for the president and this party? Here's just a sample from the last 2 weeks. The headline today will be, the one big beautiful bill passes the Congress, okay? You got to hold your applause. There's too many wins. Are you tired of winning yet? No! Fourth jobs report in a row exceeds expectations. A sample of the headlines. Lowest monthly border encounters in U.S. history. We closed the border. Last couple of days, a new trade deal with Vietnam and all the countries of the world around the world lining up for that. UPenn agrees to ban biological men from women's sports. And they ought to give a personal apology to every female athlete impacted by that nonsense. Gas prices are at a 4-year low, my friends. The Air Force and Space Force both hit their 2025 recruiting goals 3 months early. Israel is agreeing to a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas. Successful strike on Iranian nuclear sites handles that problem. That's exactly right. Strength is back. America's back. It's resulted now in a ceasefire deal between Iran and Israel. The NATO countries are increasing their defense spending, not just 2%, 5% of GDP, okay? The president got in charge and got a Rwanda-Congo peace deal. The Supreme Court ended nationwide injunctions. How about that? That conservative majority on the Supreme Court also allows third country deportations.
Okay, let's go ahead and get this thing started. Appreciate those words. So let's go ahead and get started. And just in the chats, really quickly, Andrew, you're exactly right. That's HB 2672. It doesn't have an income cap, nor a cap on the property value for that house, for your house. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, if you have questions or comments or concerns, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will address those as they come out. As you put them up there, you can also you can go to my feeds and you can put your comments there. So let's go ahead and do this. Now, I did a deep dive of the bill, and the bill, it's huge, 870 pages. Now, The press says 1,000, somebody else says 900. It's 870 pages. I've read it twice. There's a lot to unpack. I'm going to do the 90,000 foot for you. However, I made two sets of pieces of information for you. And I will put those in on my page, my web page. And the first actually is something I want you to see. This information right here is the deep dive. I'm a numbers guy, and I like to look at numbers and compare the numbers of what happened this year, last year, so on and so forth. So when you go through this one, is the actual impact, the dollars that the bill speaks to. And again, don't take my word for it. Do your own research because that's important. So as you see, I have the key provisions, why it matters to Arizona, and then the bill section where it's at in the actual piece of legislation, HR 1, the big beautiful bill that was written from the Congress that and the Senate passed out of their house. So again, this one only 5 slides, talks about numbers, talks about medium household income when we're talking about the taxes on it, SNAP, Medicaid uses, because you're hearing a lot from the Democrats, and it's important to get both sides of the story, and that's what I want to do here. Now, in order to be able to find this piece of information, you have to have the sources to be able to get this information. Now, I will tell you, this stuff is readily available on the internet. So this right here is you will find it is the HR 1 Big Beautiful Bill Act. And you can go to www.congress.gov/bill/119 and you will see this bill. Now, in order to navigate this, it's pretty simple. All you're going to do, if you want to see the text of the bill, you go down to one of these tabs right here, PDF or XML, you click that tab, and then the bill will come up and you'll be able to view that bill. Now, this is the actual bill. Again, 870 pages. It's quite a read, if you will. So I wouldn't read it while you're driving because you might fall asleep, but I would read it when you are laying in bed if you have an opportunity to do that. And the reason why I say that is when people start talking about this bill, doesn't matter what side of the aisle they're on, you want to be able to have the information that you need to get this bill. And again, you can go to this website and you can get this bill and you can find out everything about the bill. Now, I also want to make sure as you get the information, you get all of the information. Now, there's been a lot of talk about how much this is going to cost. Again, I want to make sure that you have the proper information. On the same website, you can go to the CBO estimates. And when you go to the CBO estimates, the Congressional Budget Office, it's a nonpartisan analyst for the U.S. Congress, and it will bring up how much this bill is. Now, according to the CBO, the bill, it increases the outlays by about $90 billion, decreases revenue by roughly $20 billion, and increases the deficit by about $100 billion. So on the preliminary basis, the Congressional Budget Office and the staff of the Joint Committee on Taxation Estimates that are enacting H.R. 1 as passed by the Senate. Now, it didn't get changed when it went back over to the Congress. So the bill that came out of the Senate is roughly pretty much the same that is going to the president's desk. would decrease the deficit again by $0.4 trillion, and related to the budget enforcement baseline for consideration for the Senate, compared with the CBO's January 2025 baseline budget projections. It would increase the deficit over the 25-34 period to $3.4 trillion. Now, there may be some people out there flipping out. Oh, well, he's saying this stuff. He's a rhino. He's saying this stuff. No, this is not me. This is the Congressional Budget Office. This is from their website. Okay, so go to that website, do your own research, and you can judge for yourself, read, believe it or don't believe it. This is where I received the information for this particular bill. Not saying it's a bad thing, but it's important for you to have all of the information that you need to make an informed decision for this. Now, this is the, again, this is the bill with all the amendments attached to it. And then again, this is the budget office where you can find that information about how much this is going to cost the country. Now, let's get into the bill, and let me get into this for you, and we'll get started here. Again, a lot to unpack. Gonna make sure that you get everything that you need to make an informed decision. Again, don't just take my word for it. Okay, don't just take my word for it. Remember, you need to do your own research, and by doing your own research, you'll be better informed. So let's think of three packages that this bill comes in, and this is how I broke it down, because I had to break it down in sections to be able to understand it, because as you know, 870 pages, it's a huge bill. It's a lot to read. It's a lot to unpack and a lot to interpret. So I broke it down in three overviews of this bill. First, we're talking about the comprehensive reform. So we're talking about the whole collective of it. So it's tax, healthcare, rural, and energy policy. That is what encompasses H.R. 1. Now, within that, there are different titles for each one of these subjects: healthcare, rural, and energy policies. It extends the 2017 tax cut and expands the HSA. And we'll talk about that a little later. But the HSA, if you're not familiar with that, is the Health Savings and Access. Okay. And that boost, that's a boosting percentage. And I'll get into the HSS. I'll get into that a little later. Also, this bill supports rural and small businesses when we're talking about the rural portion of this on the first tab there. And then it also talks about the references. I put the references in there for transparency, so you know. And then, of course, it introduces the mega accounts. Now, I got a lot of folks who are MAGA. It's not MAGA. It is not Make America Great Again. It is something else, and we'll talk about that. And I think you might like that. You may like what they're trying to do with this whole thing. Now, there are 6 titles for this piece of legislation. And again, got to break it down. Got to make sure that we're hitting all the points. The first title, again, as I said in the first slide, is tax reform. Okay, they are talking about tax relief provisions and extensions and the TCJA benefits that are part of the program, and I will get into that. Title 2. Now, these are the sections of the bill. Title 2, health savings. We talked a little about the HSAs and the care choices. Then we get into Title III that supports the rural and small business development. We're talking about including new opportunity zones that this bill invest in rural development. Title IV, Title IV is a rollback of the energy credits, and then in the Green New Deal subsidies, and then the enforcement of it, how how the president, after he signs this bill, is going to enforce this, and then the debt limit and the fiscal responsibility. Kind of touched a little bit about that when I took you over to the CBO office, talking about how much that this bill is going to cost between 25 and 34. Now, as we talk about the tax relief provisions in this bill, and this is in Title I, again, if you want to check this out, go to the website, and you'll be able to check this out. Now, the TCJA, okay, this is an individual tax cut permit. Now, what does that do for you when we are talking about, we're talking about taxes? Is he talking about raising taxes? Is he talking about taking more money? No, he is not. That's not what this is all about. And that's why it's important for you to know this. Now, a lot of folks may not know what the TCJA is, and that's the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA. Now, that's a federal tax reform law that was signed into law back in 2019 by President Donald Trump. In December, actually, he signed that, and it represents the most significant overhaul when we're talking about tax reform in recent history. So what does it do? What does the TCJ do other than tax reform? Well, it lowers individual taxes. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this part up is because in the new, the beautiful big bill, we hear the Democrats saying a lot that taxes are going to the top 1%. In this bill, or I think it's top 3%. In this bill, yes, that is true. However, in 2017, the president signed the TCJA, which actually lowers individual tax across most income brackets, and those income brackets are based on geographics. If a person's making 40 grand a year, that applies for them. It also doubles the standard deduction for single and married filers, expands the tax credit for child tax credit that was created for children of non-child dependents. It's a cap. It's a cap deduction, SALT, which is state and local taxes at $10,000. It limits mortgage interest deductions and eliminates personal exemptions for businesses. It cuts the corporate tax rate to 21%. Now, not a lot of people are going to like that, but however, if you have a business, they're trying to give you some tax relief in there. There's 100% bonuses depreciation, and it allows up to 20%, as I said. And it also speaks to the corporate tax cuts that are permanent. Now, that's what that is when we're talking about the TCJA. Now, again, get your information from the sources that you need to get. No tax on tips. He talked about during his campaign. He wanted to make sure that there was no tax on tips. This actually does that. It's a structured no tax on tips. There are rollbacks on the Green New Deal tax cuts, and it strengthens border security and raises the debt ceiling. Now, that's the part that kind of talked to you about a little bit in the CBO, how those dollars are going to expand. And then there's a $4,000 senior deductible within the MAGA accounts. Now, again, MAGA is not make America great again. What it is, ladies and gentlemen, it speaks to the accounts that you can put dollars in. 4,000, I believe it's $4,000 a year. The government matches that at $1,000, and with that, that money is placed in a account to provide that much needed wealth for your children or whoever you put that in uh, later on down the road. And I mean that's a great deal. I mean, I sure wish that they had that when my kids were born, because I sure would have been able to put that in that money in there for them. So good deal for folks that are just having their kids, and that's what this bill does at that portion when we're talking about the mega accounts. And more to get into that too. You have questions? Let me look at the chats. If you have questions on that. I will make sure that you get that information in that. So moving on to the next one, that helps savings and assets, and that's entitled to again. And it's important again that you know what this is. So what it is we're talking about the health part of the bill, and that ensures, again, when we're talking about support for rural and small biz, okay, the rural care expansion, it prioritizes rural care. Now, we will take some hits. And that's going to be later on in this presentation. We will take some hits in this, but we have to just, I want to make sure that folks get all the information before we move. So you have that information when you are getting this stuff flooded to you. Okay, let's talk about the support for rural and small businesses, because that's a big deal. Now, what it does, the HR1, it renews opportunity zones with rural investments through mandates. Okay. I'm not a guy who likes mandates. However, when we are creating opportunity zones in rural areas of the country and in the state, those mandates actually ensure that dollars get to rural Arizona so folks can start businesses and that they're easy to start. Now, you can find this under Section 179 of this piece of legislation. And what he did in this bill, he expanded the expenditures to $2.5 million for businesses. Now, $2.5 million is actually is in line with how demographics and the numbers are for small businesses. Most small businesses prioritizes grants and credits for rural job creations and our creators. So if you are a small business in rural Arizona and you are trying to get your business up and running, you can apply for these federal grants that are targeted to rural Arizona to create jobs that stay in rural Arizona. It simplifies the business tax and capital reinvestment rules, which is important to folks with small businesses. And then it also encourages rural childcare, broadband, and infrastructure. Now, the childcare stuff, that's what I was pushing this past session. This bill, HR1, speaks to that. So let me break that down to you. In rural Arizona, childcare is next to zero. It's typically a childcare desert. Now, what they've done with HR1, they have enhanced that bill by putting childcare grants, grants for broadband, grants for infrastructure projects, so folks can go to work and they have the proper childcare that they need. So I got to tell you, you will hear the Democrats just beat this bill up. And again, there are some parts in this bill that need some fixing. Don't get me wrong. There are some parts in this bill that need some extra care. And I'm sure as they go along, I hope that they will do that. However, I want to talk about the stuff that is not being talked about in this bill that actually benefits rural Arizona and some of the parts of Arizona. So when it talks about this bottom tab down here, repeals the tanning tax, that's an Obama era deal. Okay. So if you want to know more about that piece of the legislation or that piece of the bill is in Title 3, Section 130005, and it goes all the way to 07. So you can read that for yourself. That's an Obama piece of legislation that is pulled out of law. So when we're talking about rollbacks on energy credits, so what it does, it ends solar, wind, EV, and battery tax credits. So folks on the left are not going to like that. And I got it. However, we need to get back to coal. We need to get back to the things that have actually brought us forward. Not saying we don't need solar, because we do, because we're moving forward. That's what's going to happen. But we can't do away with coal, particularly in our area, our neck of the woods, and just rely on solar. That's not how it works. But this is a rollback of those energy credits. It shifts energy policy towards domestic production. What does that mean? We're not going to be going outside the country to try to get to produce this material, this much needed material that we need. Restricts credits for firms with foreign links, example to China. So if you have a firm that's actually getting your materials, when we're talking about energy credits or energy products, if you are getting that from China, guess what? It restricts you from getting those tax credits. You will not get those tax credits. Also, they only had in the bill China. Now there's a supplemental part of the bill that you can find, and that's in 1401 through 1405 in the piece of legislation, which actually drills down to the rest of the countries, and those are adversarial countries that are on the national list that are not any friends of ours. So as we move on to the next one, in Title 5, it actually speaks to enforcement of immigration. Now some folks don't like that. They are not going to like that, and they're not going to like that because Oh, sorry about that. That's my iPad. It was going off. I'm like, what's that noise? Had to turn it off. So when we're talking about this right here, it removes benefits for unlawful citizens, which makes sense. And I will tell you, some folks aren't going to like that, and I got it. However, we cannot take care of the world. It just doesn't work that way, ladies and gentlemen. We just can't do that. And I know some folks would want to do that. However, it is just not feasible for us to do that as a country, particularly with how much this is actually going to cost us. We can't do that. So it restricts benefits, and we're talking Social Security benefits. We're talking about so on and so forth. Okay, we've got to make sure that we're taking care of the people we need to also take care of. It increases funding for Border Patrol and ICE and biometric entry-exit systems. We use that in Afghanistan. It ends the catch and release and reinstates the Remain in Mexico asylum policy, mandates nationwide nationwide use of E-Verify for federal contractors and public benefit recipients. It also prohibits unlawful immigrants from accessing child tax credits, HSAs, and mega accounts, and also imposes a 5% excise tax on foreign remittance to help fund immigration enforcement and victims aid. So that's what that part does for it. Now, again, I know folks aren't going to like it. There's not much, it's in the bill. It is in the bill. Now, when we're talking about the excise tax, excess tax on remittance abroad, let me get into that a little bit. So it raises the federal debt ceiling to $2.5 billion, as we talked about, with projections to last through 2027, establishes a new statutory caps on non-defense discretionary spending, requires Congress to produce a balanced budget plan within the year. That's going to be a big one, and also creates a bipartisan debt commission to evaluate long-term Social Security, Medicaid, and other entitlements to make sure folks are still getting those, and then mandates public reporting for national debt trends and physical benchmarks. That's what that does right there. So again, some people may not like it, and I got it. It's not perfect. However, it is what it is. So also, when we talked about the debt ceiling, talked about that a little bit. It pushes it up, and it is what it is. We're going to see it increase significantly. So there are winners and losers in this, and I want to make sure I get to I talk about these things. We're talking about middle income families, small business owners, and rural investors. Those are some of the winners in this bill. Seniors that are making under $75K, homeschoolers and childcare providers, it's a winner. Those are winners. The losers in this, and you've heard it on the news, are the SNAP recipients, Medicaid enrollees, and rural hospitals. Now, we are going to take some hits from that, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. We are going to take some hits on that. Some hospitals, when this Medicaid is rolled back, some hospitals in our area, particularly in the eastern part of our district, they may take some hits, and I'll be talking about that in another show. Arizona solar industry and the lowest income earners for food banks, and that's the SNAP recipients and that. So is it perfect? No. However, it is what it is. And that's why I'm giving you the whole scoop of this, the whole story of this, not just, positions from the right or the left. Again, my job is to get you the resources, get you the 90,000 foot information so you can go do your own research. Again, I put it in there where you can find this information. So how does this affect Arizona? And now I think that's one of the big things that folks want to know. How is this going to affect me in this state? So again, it preserves a tax relief and expands HSA for 2.5 million Arizona taxpayers. So we have 7 million people in the state. It's going to affect 2.5 million Arizona taxpayers. Okay, this total bill, it protects rural hospitals. However, in some of the other places in the state, they may take some hits, and the budget that we just passed this past last week, we've actually worked to make sure that we've mitigated some of the impact that some of these hospitals are going to take. But it also protects rural hospitals in our district, like Page, Show Low, Globe, from harmful funding cuts. So that's what this bill does. It reinvests in broadband, as I said, clinics and infrastructure through updated opportunity zones. We talked about that. Excuse me. And it also targets new investments for rural tribal communities across Navajo, Apache, and Gila counties. Now, some of y'all are going to get upset because it says tribal communities. Again, I want to make it clear. This is a federal law. This isn't state. This isn't Walt Blackman. This is a federal law. So let's talk about how it affects us in LD7, how it impacts us in LD7. So LD7 hospitals risk, and now this is what it is. And I'm going to be straight with transparency. Our hospitals may risk a $14.5 million annually loss, okay, if there are no offsetting reforms for this. Now, when people talk about, well, the state budget is so big, okay, Chairman Livingston said this at the beginning of session in appropriations. We don't know what the federal government is going to do. So we have to prepare for when this thing rolls out. So that $14 million annually, we are going to get hit with that. And we are offsetting that with the budget that we just passed with hopefully with some of the savings that we got. Now, over 60,000 local families benefit from the permanent tax relief, senior deductibles, and child credits. Unless you are a person in this state that is not documented or not legal to be in the state. Okay. And I talked about that. Snowflake, Globe, San Manuel, and Superior are designated as opportunity zone investment targets. So I'll say that again. Snowflake, Globe, San Manuel, and Superior are designated as opportunity zones investment targets within the district. So this bill right here targets our district of LD7. And you can go and you can find that under the title that I put in here. And do this. Now on the slide, the bottom one, the orange, says high risk to rural hospitals. That is that 14 million that's spread across the district, not just for those three, for these 4 areas or 5 areas. That is spread across the district. That is a hit that across the district, and other districts are getting the same thing. This is just not, the hits just don't apply to LD7. These hits are across the state. And when I mean high risk, that's what I'm talking about, the 14 million. Okay. Risk to food insecurity rises due to SNAP reform. Food banks and clinics may see a surge of demand. Now, when the SNAP benefits go away because of this or get cut, our food banks are going to see an increase of people trying to get food because those benefits are going to be cut. Now, I want to make something clear because some folks have a misconception about this stuff, this SNAP program and what have you. Listen, these programs are meant for a hand up, not a handout. And a lot of people use them for a hand up. Okay. However, there are some people that are physically and mentally able to get up and go to work, and they are on some of these programs. And what they have seen, I guess, at the federal government is that there are people that need to go back to work and contribute to the tax base. So Are people going to get hurt with the removal of the SNAP programs? Yeah, there are going to be people that get hurt from this. However, it's going to remove some of those folks that are frauding the system, and off of that. I'm sure people are saying, well, why would you hurt people? And if they're not frauding the system, I'm not the one that's doing it. Okay, I'm just reporting on what this bill does. It's not Walt Blackman doing this. This is the 119th Congress with this bill, and that's what they determined to put in this bill. So it is not me. I am simply simply reporting what is in the bill. Moving on, we're talking about LD7. I talked a little bit about that. High snare of rural and tribal land affected. So when we're talking about this one right here, over 25%, ladies and gentlemen, of Arizona opportunity zones are located in rural or tribal areas. We talked about where it affects LD7. Some of the rural areas, LD7 includes some of the most uncapitalized OZ in the state. Okay, opportunity zones. Do I need to say that again? We have the most in LD7 of opportunity zones in the state where folks can create and start a business. That's what this bill identified. The bill mandates that OZ capital flow into tribal lands and frontier towns. Now, what's a frontier town? Snowflake is a frontier town. And that's good for Snowflake. Okay. Other areas in the state in rural Arizona are frontier towns. Now, when they're talking about the LIHTC, that is the low income housing tax credit. Now, that's eligible to tribal and agricultural areas. Now, down in Pinell County, Apache Junction, that is an agricultural area. So the tax credits apply to those folks down there that are targeted through the opportunity zones. It also aligns with OZ and the investments that are needed in Globe. That's my dog. Don't worry about it. That are located in Globe, Sholo, and the Navajo Nation. Again, some folks are going to be upset because they're going to see that it's the Navajo Nation. I got it. Write to your congressman about that. We can't do anything at the state level other than report this. Now, some of the community level risk with this, as you can see. Okay, there's a check on the Arizona Healthcare Association, food banks, as I said. They may be unable to meet the SNAP cut demands, and the solar sector jobs are a high risk in the state because of the rollbacks in this. Now, some folks have asked me, now, what are some of the issues that are going to happen with veterans because of this bill? Well, if you're a veteran and some of this applies to you, if you are working for tips, okay, it excludes tips and overtime pay from federal income tax for working veterans. It allows up to $10,000 in vehicle loan interest deductibles, especially for use for veterans in rural communities. Veterans over 65 can continue the HSA contributions without penalty. It expands the HSA coverage to include mental health and home medical needs. Now, mental health falls under PTSD. So when you hear that veterans are going to lose their mental health care because they don't rate enough to get the mental health care from the VA, but just enough to get it from the state, you probably heard that veterans are going to lose that health care. They are not going to lose that health care, mental health, and the coverage that they get for that. It expands it. This bill expands it. Okay. It also supports veteran entrepreneurs via pass-through business tax relief and simplifies the deductions. So there are some things in here that help veterans when we're going through this. Now, Governor Hobbs has said that hundreds of thousands will lose health care in Arizona. Now, we talked about that a little bit. And up to 200,000 Arizonans could lose coverage due to the paperwork or technical issues that when this bill is implemented. And again, I'm telling you, I'm giving you the information, and you do with it what you want with the resources that I provided you. And that is in this piece of legislation. Again, I've read it. I've read this bill twice, 870 pages, and it does say that. Okay. Arizona Medicaid will have to redetermine eligibility for over 2.5 million enrollees. So there's going to be a shift in Arizona healthcare, and that shift is finding these folks, making sure they don't fall through the cracks. And they are estimating, the Arizona numbers are estimating, we're talking about 2.5 million enrollees, but 200,000 Arizonas could lose their health care coverage due to paperwork and technical issues. That is an administrative deal. That is not a legislative piece from this bill. That's Arizona adjusting to this bill. If you see what I'm saying. Now, again, in the bill, it talks about shrinking of government and removing some of the federal dollars that come to the state. Now, some time ago, I told folks that we in Arizona, we per capita get the most federal dollars from the federal government. I said that. It's been said in on our approps committee. It's been said. It's not new. And because we get the most, we are going to see the most cutbacks, the most rollbacks from the federal government. Rural and tribal residents will face barriers like limited internet, mail access, and navigation support when we're talking about some of the coverage of risk. And that's something that the state is going to have to pick up on that. LD7 continues. Our counties with high AHCCCS enrollment are at a particular risk, and that is Navajo, Apache, and Gila. Okay? Now, again, that is not the bill. That is the technical issues that come with trying to implement the bill. And when they're talking again, trying to redetermine the eligibility of 2.5 million enrollees and the 200,000 Arizonas that could lose some coverage. Now, I am willing to bet, because I didn't see this in the bill, the 200,000 it's probably directed to folks that are not supposed to be in the state. It's also, without overreach and flexibility, hospitals will absorb more uncompensated care and ER overflows. Okay. Now these are all redeterminations again. And again, I want to make sure I let people know what is going on with this. All right. And we just got 2 more slides here. So what are some of the takeaways that we talked about this? Well, we talked about the Medicaid, the food stamps, the possible loss in the food stamps. We talked about ERs. Will they close? I don't know. I'm not in that area, that space. But I'm, as a legislator, I'm going to be meeting with these folks to see how we can mitigate some of this. But I don't know. Will our taxes go up or down? Only if you earn above $400 or $40,000 a year. Now they've said, again, remember they said that the top 3% are going to get most of the money and the middle class is going to pay for that. I talked about what happened in 2017, that bill that was signed into law by President Trump then, and it still has carried over. The Biden administration did not take that out. So yes, there are tax breaks for that upper part. And if you make above 40,000, okay, you're not going to get hit with that. Now, some people are going to say, well, what about below 40,000? Okay, that's the national threshold that the CBO went by. And there'll be more to follow that. Is the bill fully funded? No, it is not fully funded, and it's going to add to our debt. After everything is done, they're done running the gauntlet with this. At the end of the day, this bill will cost $3.3 trillion. It's going to grow our debt. Okay? There's no way around that, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's what this bill is going to do. However, there are things in the bill that does well. So the pros of this bill: tax relief, rural investment, small business support. The cons: gutting Medicaid, SNAP, clean energy rollbacks, Arizona revenue loss. That is why we made more investments in our budget. Number one, we put more money in reserves, $1.2 billion, I believe, in our reserves. We have our rainy day fund that we don't use. So as a legislative body in Arizona, we were preparing for this. So this other stuff that I've talked about, well, it's going to hit, but it's not going to hit as hard. And the bottom line is Arizona must act now and face what's going on. Now, public health and welfare, those are federal dollars that are getting rolled back, as I said. SNAP is getting rolled back. Some of the issues that we are going to see with reclassifying some of these folks for health care. Okay. Veterans, you're not going to lose your health care. All right. There's going to be some slow movement in the reinstatement or reclassification for folks in Medicaid. There's going to be some hospitals that take some hits. And when I say hits, it's the stuff that's in this bill. But I don't think this is something that we need to be scared of. I think it is something that it's important for us to know what's out there. Again, I'm not going to just tell you the good and the good of the bill, because that just wouldn't do you justice to do that. That's just not right for me to do. And again, in closing, if you want to know more about this bill and find out for yourself what's in this bill, you're going to have to sit down and read it and dissect it. That's what you're going to have to do. This isn't something that you'll be able to take a couple snippets off of Twitter or some of the other social media stuff that's on here. You are going to have to sit down and read this bill so you can understand what's in it. And you can discern for yourself based on reading this bill, doing your research, going through these sections, these titles, and doing your homework. Now, not a lot of people are going to do that. What's going to happen is after this, somebody's going to probably say that Walt Blackman said a bunch of stuff without any sources or references. That's why this is recording. That's why I put these references up here. Somebody's going to say that Walt Blackman says the bill is going to cost money and it puts us in a deficit. Well, that's what the CBO says, not me. And I've provided that information. And again, you go to cbo.gov/publication/6537. Now, in closing, I will make sure that you are able to get this info on my website. All you do is go to waltb.com, get on the main page, go down to LD7 newsletter, click that, and then when you put your information there and subscribe, you will be able to go to where that newsletter is. It'll bring this up. This is May's newsletter. And when it brings it up, you will be able to see this information that we are providing today on my page, because it'll be on my page and you can go through it and dissect it as you need to. And then again, I will make sure that both of those slides are on there. I have taken up enough of your time, and I want to make sure that I am mindful of your time. This is Walt Blackman. My job is to make sure you have the information that you need to make the decisions you need to make concerning your family, economics, whatever it is. So when you get in front of people and you start talking about the big, beautiful bill, you know where to find it because you've read it and you can talk smart about it. And you're just not using Facebook quotes to, I don't know, just to get by in the conversation. Just make sure you get that information that you need. Everybody, I'm Walt Blackman. I hope that you got something out of this. Enjoy your 4th of July. Remember, there are a lot of things going on at Snowflake Taylor. We've got the rodeo that's starting tomorrow. Also tomorrow morning in Show Low. It is the 4th of July parade. Make it over there. Take your family. But make sure you're safe. No drinking and driving. Do what you can afford. You don't want to hurt anybody. You want to make sure that you're having fun. But when you're having fun, be safe, everybody. I'm Walt Blackman, again, your state representative. Reach out to me if you need something. And again, enjoy tomorrow. And I'll see you on the campaign trail.
I am the example. That's my intention. The choices I make each and every day, they are not just for me, they are for everyone around me. I am the example to everyone I touch and the compound effect of those people. My example has a flow-on effect to everyone around me. And I do not take that responsibility lightly. Everything I do, I set the example. I am grateful for the opportunity to be the example. I set the example. That's my intention. I set the example through my actions, not my words, not by what I say, but by what I do.